Welcome everyone to an Amplitude Studio stream. My name is Jordan, and I would like to give everybody a warm welcome into our art design stream this week. If you've been here the last couple of weeks, you'll know that we had a game design stream last week and the overview stream the week before that. So this is the third week running of uber special dev interview streams. Which is super cool. It's been awesome to be able to have so many awesome faces, so many new people in the chat, and that's just been a fantastic time. Honestly, it's been amazing having you, the community, support us so much as we've been revealing new features that are coming in the expansion, as well as the free update that is coming alongside that. So thank you very much for being so supportive and awesome. We love you all, and I see a lot of friendly names in the chat, which I'd love to take a second to just say hi to some of y'all. Alinra, what's up? Saltarius, thank you for blessing the stream. We appreciate that. We got Sebix and Ryan over there on YouTube. To everyone else who's hanging out in the stream, lurking, we appreciate you. And I hope that today will be a very enjoyable and interesting stream for you as we talk about the art that goes into our games. Humankind is a very beautiful game, as you all know, and a lot of time and effort has gone into making it that way. Everything from the concept art that goes into the ideas that are then illustrated and put into the game, as well as the 3D art from the character models all the way to the buildings, to the landscape. All of those things take a lot of time to make and a lot of care and concern and research. And so today we kind of want to go into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of those aspects. And you're probably wondering, who is Victor, this guy who's sitting next to me, that I haven't talked to this whole time? Well, Victor is going to be our first of 3 guests that we have planned for today. Victor is a 3D artist, so we'll be talking a little bit about some general art topics with Victor, as well as the 3D art, and then we'll actually have Kanta and Floor, which are 2 other artists that we have here in the studio. We'll be talking about the illustrations and the character models and, I guess, avatar models. And things like that with them. So we got a lot of exciting things planned for you. The stream is planned for about 1.5 to 2 hours. So sit tight, grab a cup of tea or whatever it is you drink, and get cozy, because we got a lot of fun things to talk about. And just as a heads up, at the end of the stream, we will actually end stream, and then we will restart back up with our normally scheduled programming. Depending on when we end, it'll be around 6 p.m., so in about 2 hours. And that'll be just me. I'm going to continue my Gigaopolis playthrough of Humankind, attempting to secure one of the most coveted achievements in Humankind. So that's the game plan. Thank you all for being here. Eduardo, someone named Lay, Kaizan, Benedict, Nathaniel, welcome in. If we do have any questions, we will be kind of capturing some of those questions and answering them a little bit later on. So if you have any questions right now, please direct them to Victor. As at the end of his section, we will answer as many of those questions as we can. And if you have any general Amplitude Studios or Humankind related questions, feel free to ask us these questions on Twitter. You can add us, or you can go on Games Together and ask these questions in the forums, as we just don't have time to answer every single question. But we love you and we appreciate you being here regardless. So Victor, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey.
You know, when you're playing a video game and you're at home and you're, the Mycenaeans and you're killing your neighbors or whatever, and you're thinking to yourself, my gosh, my outfit looks amazing, or oh my gosh, that, new market or maker's quarter that I made looks amazing. I don't think the people are thinking to themselves, there's a person behind this. They're thinking to themselves, this is just awesome, it's cool, or whatever. But you have actually spent around 4 years, it is?
Yeah, I started at Amplitude in July 2018.
July 2018. So, you've been here for a while. You have experience. Tell us a little bit about your story in, art in general, maybe? Like, what inspired you to become an artist? And then we can work our way into a little bit more of what you've actually had a hand in for Humankind.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Victor Depardieu. I'm a 3D artist at Amplitude since like 2018. And basically, I always wanted to do arts, and the most useful way to do it for me when I was young was video games or cinema, but actually video games, because video games are an art form that combines a lot of art forms. So basically, for me, it was an opportunity to do arts, to tell stories to people, to interact with people, while doing pretty much every part or a lot of art disciplines. Like you can draw, you can do 3D, you can do photography. Sometimes you can do a bit of filmmaking, depending on what you work on. If you're a marketing artist or a 3D artist or a 2D artist. So I did an art school specialized on video games. And then I knew I wanted to work on like really specific video games. Like some people, some students, when they are doing 3D, they aim to really specific studios or AAA studios, or they want to work on a really specific art direction. Me, I wanted to work on a game that I loved, and basically this was 4X games, and I loved Amplitude because I was a huge fan of Endless Legends. And this studio had the opportunity to be not that big, because the art team at Amplitude on one project like Humankind, at the peak of the production, like the team of 3D artists in my field is like around 4 people with a lot of extents.
So is that a big team?
No, it's not really that big.
Okay.
So you have the opportunity to do a lot of things.
I don't really know what is a big team or what's a small team in regards to artists working on a video game. I mean, Amplitude Studios is kind of a middle-sized gaming studio at this point.
Yeah.
So 4 artists to me sounds like a pretty small team, just like in my head.
It's not that big in terms of. In terms of art, some companies, like big AAA companies, have like 20, 30, 40, 50 artists. And at Amplitude, the one cool thing is that you touch to a lot of things. You do the assets for the game, you create the buildings, the terrain, stuff like that, but you also put it in the game, in the engine. You do a lot of things around discussion and relation with other fields, like 2D art, for example. So Amplitude was perfect for that, to touch a bit to everything, do a very global work, and work on games that have a really cool interaction with the public, with the players, that have long life cycles, where you have the opportunity as a young artist to work, and that's exactly what I did, work on the main game and then continue to work on it on the live. So you learn a lot of new things, and you have the opportunity to push your ideas and gain experience. I started as an intern, and now I'm like responsible for the environment art team on the live. So these games for that are pretty cool, and these are games that comes with a lot of constraints, and they are really games when you're working on like video games in the critical sense of it, because for some AAA there's not much difference in terms of what you're going to produce if you were working on an animation film, for example. But when you're working on a strategy game, you see everything from the top. Every asset has to have readability and legibility in mind. So it's really cool to work with this game constraint, because it really helps you work on your field. And,
no, it's a very interesting, unique aspect of strategy games, I think. It was funny, I was checking YouTube comments earlier today, and somebody's comment said, I wish the devs would play more zoomed in when they're playing Humankind. And I didn't even really think about it, because I'm trying to, like, keep an eye on my whole empire, and I'm like, okay, like, these are all the territories that I have. And they were saying, I play almost all the way zoomed, but like one step out from all the way zoomed. And I was just like, that's a really good point, because I don't spend enough time fully zoomed in. But when you see, like, for example, chat, you can see up here, all these really unique and interesting city tiles, the buildings, all these things, there's so much detail.
Yeah.
And you might, if you're not paying attention, just kind of gloss over it and be like, it's a city, you know? oh, those are city tiles. But each one of them, you know, is specifically designed. It has those, you know, different road layouts, and it's really beautiful.
But that's games that are fascinating to work on because you have to put a lot of details. So when you're super zoomed in, it's pretty to look at, and it has this life to it, like the little people rolling around, for example, is one of the features we love.
The horse carts that are drifting around corners.
These ones.
I love it.
But it also has to be beautiful when you're playing in the flow of a normal game, like really de-zoomed, switching a lot back and forth between cities and units and battles and diplomatic screen and everything. So these are really cool games to work in, to learn what is it to do art for a video game specifically, and not what it is to do art for any digital art form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Humankind is definitely a 4X game, specifically a historical 4X game set on Earth.
Yeah.
That has a very unique style that I don't think I've seen anywhere else. Obviously, there's you know, not a ton of historical 4X games out there, but you know, the style that Humankind has is a very you know, almost realistic but yet sophisticated type vibe to it, and a lot of you know, our community members have, you know, talked about the specific art style of Humankind. Can you maybe talk to a little bit of the artistic direction that went into the game, and you know, how the team really decided on the vibe, I guess, that we wanted for Humankind?
Yeah, I guess when I try to explain my work on Humankind, I say that the goal is really like to try to work like on tabletop miniatures, you see, tabletop figurines. Basically, you're trying to say, okay, I'm gonna try to show the fantasy of someone playing a tabletop game with, and I'm gonna try to represent the real map of it, like the sort of like phantasmagoric map of it. And there is always this balance between realism, like super realism, like in sort of war games, tabletop war games, and the more fantasy one. And for Humankind, we tried to have something that was really coherent with our fantasy of having a lot of cultures from different places, a lot of geographical terrain from different places, reminding us of different areas, and these really vibrant colors and mood, because a lot of strategy games are sometimes a bit grim or like quite hard to get into it because they are sort of really niche games. And at Amplitude we try always to put as much detail as we can and to have something vibrant and appealing to everyone. You can like the idea was it's a strategy video game, so you mostly have to deal with numbers, but you can stop and just look at the panorama for like 20 minutes and it should be cool to look at. So that was the main principle of it.
Yeah, I mean, when I think my favorite part of the game is when I'm exploring a new map. You know, I generate a new map and I'm like, all right, what do we have here? You know, what are the interesting looking valleys? And oh, this is a sick mountain range that, you know, has this like perfect, you know, caldera type thing. Or, you know, there's just a lot of times when I'm just excited to like see what the map looks like, you know. And I think that speaks a lot to the kind of micro beauty, but also the macro beauty at the same time of the game. So
yeah, that's the main challenge to have, is that your terrain have to look beautiful at macro and at micro.
Yeah.
And if it works, it means that we did our job well. So it's pretty cool. But yeah,
definitely.
It's,
so yeah, I mean, like over time, obviously we've added new cultures to the game in the Africa Rising, cultures of Latin America, and then the diplomatic cultures that will be coming in the expansion. You know, with all those changes and new additions, how do you keep a coherent vision throughout the whole process? You know, when you're adding new buildings and new city tile bricks, let's say. You know, how do you, or how do we, I guess, as a studio?
That's a good question. It's not so super easy to do, but basically you have to have a really strong documentation and really strong guidelines, and you have to have the right people at the right places to maintain this vision. For example, and sometimes like the art direction can evolve because with people coming back and forth between projects in the company or like new recruits, sometimes you have an artist that comes with a new style that is amazing and the art direction evolves with him because he has so much to bring to the table. But in terms of 3D, it's mostly a lot of structure, a lot of guidelines about the size of the buildings, the texturing styles, the colors you should avoid, for example.
Colors you should avoid.
Like, for example, do not have black 2 blacks or white 2 whites, because if you have to be able to tweak for specific cases, for example.
Or like you can't have blue buildings or else it'll look like the ocean tile next to it or something
things
like
that. Like the color of the terrain should not be the same as the colors of your buildings, etc., etc. The stylization of like the terrain, for example, try to have a bit of realism in it so you can remember some of our references, but also stylize it so it can be coherent with the other range of mountains of the other biomes. So
yeah, I mean, you never know where somebody's going to place a certain building down on, whether it's in a desert or whether it's next to the mountains or by the sea.
Yeah, so basically it comes down to a lot of structure and a coherent vision from the start to anticipate a lot what are the sort of problematic cases that will come with the adding of content after. And for the live, for example, to give a concrete example, when we did the coastlines, for example, we tried to anticipate, but sometimes in the future we'll probably try to add quarters that goes on the coastline and that will interact with the coastline. So how do we design this coastline so that we can put buildings on it later? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of anticipation, a lot of structure, and a lot of back and forth between concept artists, art direction, and game direction.
Yeah, when you were talking earlier about like the color of the buildings, I was thinking to myself, you know, I wonder if there's any buildings that you've had to make that you had to change the color from the actual building that it was, like what it looked like in real life. Because it made me think, I worked at Disney World for a bit, and they actually use a specific color called like go away green or something, or I don't know. I think they have like a green and a blue that they use that is essentially a color that they paint the buildings so that when you're looking in the park and you're looking out, it kind of disappears into the sky so that you don't notice it as much. Because they want you to feel like you're immersed and like only look at the set pieces, right? So I wonder, it just kind of made me think of like what kind of colors we're using to focus on certain aspects and make other things kind of like just be background. You know, like I don't know. That was kind of a compound question, I realized.
On Humankind is more centered around the notion of scale. Some buildings are not exactly on the same scale of the like the others. We try to.
Do you have any
keep
examples of that?
City centers and emblematic quarters have always a city layout that is specifically designed for them, so you can notice them more easily.
Right.
The same for all the sites, embassies in the next extensions. These are quarters that we try to put in the center of the hexagon with its own space and a lot of empty space around them, so you can notice them easily.
Kind of pops out from the background.
Yeah, and scale is the most huge issues with 4X, because sometimes you are trying to replicate a building from real life that is
Small?
that is
that's
actually
really big.
huge, and to fit that into an hexagon is quite complicated. For example, it happened a lot with Mughal buildings in era 4, 5,
Okay,
which were Indian palaces that are actually gigantic, and you have to synthesize that and put it in an hexagon, so, and pretty much at the same scale as the other buildings of the game. So it's mostly like that, and you have to do adaptation, and that's why it's interesting.
So, two-tile district, are we ever going to get that?
No, you don't have two-tile districts. That comes with the constraint of it. But yeah, it's mostly scale and sometimes FX.
Yeah. I think that'd be interesting. I mean, we kind of have the, I guess the space or the nuclear testing sites or whatever, they require like a bigger area to like place it down. That'd be interesting to have like a wonder or something that takes up like 4 tiles.
Yeah, we thought about that actually, but it's complicated. It creates a lot of edge cases.
Yeah,
because,
or like the Nazca lines, like make a really big Nazca line, like a 4-tile.
Yeah, but it comes with its own gameplay constraints because in case of like the nuclear test, it's easy. It's a quarter, and then you have like a sort of a safe zone area. Yeah. If you put the Nazca line on multiple times, if you have to ransack a Nazca line, which shall you ransack? Like you have
it's a good question.
So there is a lot of questions like that.
You have 4 units and you separate each 4 of them and you perfectly cover it with 1 unit on each tile.
And is it fair if you have your embedded quarter that can be ransacked in 1 turn because it is one tile, but if your neighbor has emblematic quarters, so when you ransack it is like 4 tiles to ransack? So.
All right, I get it. I get it. I'm not supposed to be a game designer.
But it's really interesting because it summarizes a lot of problems we have when doing art for 4X games.
Yeah.
Is that you want to put as much historical stuff and as much detail as you want, and you have to adapt it to gameplay constraint. And sometimes it's really interesting because in terms of design, it makes you those pretty cool stuff, like. For the wonders, for example, for a lot of things, actually.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see how the decisions that are made are also artistic decisions, but also gameplay related decisions, so that it all meshes together and everything makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how many different Nazca line variations are there?
6.
There's 6 different. Okay, I was like, I don't think I've ever made all of the Nazca line variations.
When you put a Nazca line in the game, it does a random between the variations.
Oh, so you can have doubles.
So you can have doubles. Yeah.
Oh, so you might have to actually have more than 6 territories and do Nazca in all of them.
Or just have luck.
Yeah, just get lucky. I'm trying to think. I was like, which era is the Nazca? And it's in the second era,
2.
right? Yeah. So the chances are that you don't have 6 cities in the second era.
Yeah, but you can double it, so...
You can have 2 in 1 territory?
You can... I think so.
Oh, okay. I've only played the Nazca once. Easy, you don't ransack Nazca lines if you attempt game shuts down telling you you're bad and you should feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah, we could try to do that, but complicated.
Yeah. Somehow I think some of our users wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Dr. Kane, thanks. I think the answer is pretty much always to get good. Oh, goodness. All right, well, let's move on, talk a little bit more about the 3D art, things that you've worked on in the game.
Yeah.
As we've seen on screen for the past bit, as we've been talking, there's been a lot, chat you've seen, there's been a lot of different videos, images that's popped up, a lot of stuff from the new cultures that are going to be added into the game in the expansion. Let's talk a little bit about what you've worked on. You've been here for 4 years. You've touched a lot of things that are in the game. What are some of the things you're most proud of, that you enjoyed working on the most?
Before that, just a shout out to the rest of the team, because as you know, game dev is community work.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I'm not alone in working on 3D art on Humankind. So you have, I think, a link with with portfolios.
We have two commands available in the chat. !artists. Juliet, one of our content creator managers, actually set up a little link website that actually has the links of all of the artists who worked on Humankind. I'm assuming all of them are on there. It's like 14 or so names, I think.
Yeah, in terms of 3D art, there was Mathias, Marine, Salim, Adrien, Maxime, Ophélie, Gio. So there's a lot of people that worked on it among, like, during the development of the game, which was super cool.
Oh, the link might have gotten messed up. Looks like there's a different link.
Okay, we'll see. But if you go to ArtStation and you search for Humankind, you will find other artists that are working on the game.
So for those of our viewers, by the way, if you're on YouTube, that command only works on Twitch. I'm sorry, I know. YouTube will maybe figure it out at some point, but for now, like you're saying, these links are to ArtStation's profiles for artists. And could you maybe just explain a little bit what ArtStation is, so that anybody that's out there that's like, what's ArtStation?
ArtStation is basically a platform to post digital art, and it's sort of an industry standard for portfolios.
Okay.
So basically, when a huge game comes out, you can go to ArtStation, and they're usually an art blast, let's call that, when artists are posting what they are working on the game. So we did that for Humankind, and a lot of artists from the 3D team, but the 2D team, the character art team, posted their work, and you can see all of it, and it's beautiful. So. So to your question, I worked with Ophélie Braun on this expansion, and we did quite a lot of things. We did obviously all the city centers and emblematics of the new cultures. We did we call that common buildings sets, so new architectural styles for the cities, and we did that for the Scouts. We did that for Singapore. We did that for the Bulgarians, for the Swiss, and also natural wonders and natural wonders and artificial and cultural wonders. For me, the most fun I had was with natural wonders, because these are assets that summarize a lot what is it to work on a forest. Is that you take an emblematic area of the world with very different scale, very different specificities, and you try to constrict it in like hexagons in a style of your artistic direction. So, for example, you see Elgia and the Chocolate Hills on the screen right now, and it was pretty cool. Elgia was actually quite difficult to do because it's an Icelandic volcano cliff. With really specific colors and terrain formations.
Like a ravine, almost.
Yeah, it's a ravine.
Like a wide ravine.
Yeah, it's a ravine. It's actually really huge. And to put in the emblematic details of Elgia in the game, and also have a sense of huge scale and colors, it was quite difficult, but super cool too. And on the other side of things, Pamukkale was pretty cool to put in the game too, because it's really emblematic of Turkey. It has these really super cool shapes. You can almost copy the shapes exactly as the same as the reality while going to Google Maps and just pick specific reference images. So it's this thing was pretty cool, and also the opportunity, and that's super cool thing with the live, to enhance what we have done in the gold, to add new buildings for the contemporary era, to give a sort of more Asian futuristic vibe to Singaporean cities, to have the opportunity to make a new city style for the Scots that is not exactly the same as the British or the French one, to give more of this Victorian feeling, grey, black tiles, black roofs of Edinburgh. It's super cool.
I want to go to Edinburgh, actually.
Yeah, super cool city.
I still haven't been to Scotland. I've been to lots of parts of the UK, Wales, London, Ireland, but I haven't been to Scotland yet. It's still on my list. I'll get there someday. But so you explained something there that I don't think maybe people actually know or understand. I definitely felt like it was kind of not news to me, but something that I just had never really pinned down. But in when you have an expansion or a DLC or something like that, and there is a new culture that's added that has unique architectural style, at that point, that's when you all design new buildings, new art pieces for that.
Yeah.
But for certain other ones, those art pieces are used for multiple cultures.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes for the music as well. Certain things we're able to use for multiple things, but obviously when it comes to a unique, art, a unique design, those buildings, scream a certain culture, and so you can't really just be like, we'll just slap on the English buildings or whatever, And so that's really cool to know that there's so much thought that goes into that, and also time to create those unique elements.
Yeah, the cool thing with Humankind, and that's really a central topic of the game, is that representation and representation is important. And when we put a new culture in the game, we always try to put as much as we can in terms of detail and representation about it. So if we have the opportunity to put a new architectural style, because we have nothing that is in the game that is really that makes justice to the architectural style of the culture, we are going to try to do it. It comes with production constraints, and sometimes we have the time and the opportunity to do it, sometimes not. But we're always going to try to improve that in the future. So like some improvements that we made while working on the DLCs are visible with the culture of the main game.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Singaporean culture, how we kind of needed a bit more of a futuristic, bit more of an Asian, but with green spaces vibe for those buildings. There are the pictures on the screen now.
This as a reference, and then you have the city centers and emblematic of Singapore, and then you have the
so cool.
sort of main buildings of the Singaporean cities.
Where is Singapore again? Singapore's... where is the actual...
Southeast Asia?
Southeast Asia, okay. I'm like trying to pinpoint on a map where it is. I was like, have I ever been close enough to like head to Singapore?
I never went to Singapore, so...
Yeah, I know. My dad, when I was a kid, he went on like business trips to Singapore because he worked for like Hewlett Packard. But I never actually knew where he was going, you know what I mean? Like you just hear, oh, Dad's on a business trip, I guess. But it doesn't look like it's in this time period. It looks like kind of like it's 20 years from now or something like that. That's super cool. Near Indonesia, okay. Smart, I like it. Geography isn't our strong suit in the United States, so I know a lot of different countries, but sometimes I forget what part of the world exactly it is in. But anyway, so with the images that we are seeing here, a lot of these building types or specific buildings are based off of real-world images. Yeah. So could you maybe talk a little bit about how we decide what things to reference and how the historical references play directly into how the art is made, and maybe kind of go into a little bit of the process? Because I know before when we were talking about this, having you come onto the stream, we talked a little bit about kind of like the pipeline of you start off with an image, or maybe you look at the satellite stuff. Can we maybe go through that process for the viewers back home?
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to explain as the slideshow goes, but basically we say, okay, we are going to add a new culture, we're going to add the Scots.
The Scots, let's go.
So let's go for the Scots. We're going to add the Scots, and we look at the assets we have in the game, and we say, okay, maybe we can give them this architectural style, for example, the one that is used for the English, but when we look at Scots cities from the system, it's not that good. So we'll try to make a new building style for the Scots. Then we tell to our historians, so Etienne.
Next week we'll be having another stream. We'll have Etienne, who
talk to Etienne about that.
Victor was talking about. So we'll get more into the history, nitty gritty. But so there's obviously a lot of pictures that were used.
So we say to Etienne, hey, Etienne, can you find us reference of like Scots cities from this time period and what you want to represent, and put it on a folder. And then Loris or other concept artists take those references and make a concept out of it. For example, this one, the concept you're gonna see, it was made by Jeanne, who is now working on who is working on Endless Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
And she took these references. She does a sort of concept art with 3D into it too.
And what kind of tools are you using at this point? When we're seeing those buildings there, what is this made in?
They make a sort of basic gray block in Blender.
Okay, so
we are going to use for proportion to be true to the proportion they did, and we give them 3D meshes to say, okay, I want this building to do this size because it's going to be the size in the game. Right. So you're not doing a design that will not fit in my hexagons and my city layouts.
Mm-hmm. So the scale and all that stuff is then moved into the game engine through the mesh system, you said?
Yeah. Okay. So you put 3D meshes in the game, and basically we do a lot of back and forth because we, as 3D artists and as integrators, we have constraints. So we say, okay, I need 10 buildings for the main part of the city, and then I need 3 large buildings for the money quarters, and then I need 10 buildings for the industry quarters, etc., etc. So they took these references, they do the concept arts, they give us the concept arts, and we as 3D artists start to produce the art they showed us. And depending on the time, if we want to do it or not, and the artistic sort of liberty you have, you try to put your own twist on it, either by like adding new buildings, or modifying some stuff, or saying, hey, I looked at this reference that you have not used, and can I put that in it? And then we do it. We make the modelization, we make the texturing. And then we put it in the game, and we do the layout city arrangements with or without other assets that are already in the game, because we have made it like since long ago or stuff like that. So mostly props like market stalls, lampposts, stuff like that. Or in case of cultures that are using mixed architectural styles, for example, Cuba. Cuba, a part was buildings that were contemporary and buildings that were inspired by the Spanish architecture. And so we did quite a mix of that to give that feeling of La Habana with old and new buildings cohabiting together. So
cool. Yeah, I think it's so interesting how the little, each of the buildings kind of fits in like little Lego pieces, to make the districts. I'm not sure what...
Do you have the screen with the city layouts, with the grey ones?
We have a pretty cool asset that Etienne's going to see if he can find real quick, but So tell us what this is. I don't know if everybody really notices this while they're playing the game, but this is some interesting stuff. Tell us more about what's happening in this image.
This is a great example on what 3D art for Forex is that we put a lot of details in that and a lot of investment in that, and if people don't notice it, it's because we did our job right, in a sense. Yeah,
it's like good music. It's like it's just part of the experience.
Basically, the top left image is a quarter, so basic food quarter, also farmer's quarter. This farmer quarter is basically a huge object with a lot of small objects in it. And so it's composed of bricks of buildings, roads, and other stuff like small gardens, trees, and stuff like that. And for each of these elements, you have as many variations as you want, because like, for example, in the center of the tile, you're gonna call a huge food brick, but this huge food brick, it can have one visual variation, but it also can have 8 if you want to. If you have time, you can put 8 or 10 or 12 or stuff like that. And these buildings will change based on the culture you choose and you evolve with. And then there is roads, and one of the first things we did when we developed the game was to say cities around the world and around the times and eras did not have the same layouts. Right. There is a huge difference between a city, like between Copenhagen and New York City and Tokyo in terms of layout.
Yeah, I mean, even different cities within the U.S. have been completely designed differently.
Yeah.
You know, you have a city like Denver, which is like a wheel.
Yeah.
You know, it has like a big outer ring, smaller inner ring, and then spokes. Essentially roads that connect out to the outer ring that kind of help facilitate the traffic a little bit. But then you have other cities like Salt Lake City, which is literally just a grid.
Yeah.
It's just like the streets are literally 300 north, 500 south, 400 north, 500 south. Like, it's literally just all numbers. It's the weirdest place to be like, oh yeah, I live off of 900 or whatever, but you can find exactly where you want to go if you just know the number. You know, it's actually really nice. So some of these actually look kind of grid-like, and some of them look a little bit more circle-like, that one on the right. Yeah,
so we did that. We said, okay, different cities are different layouts, so we're going to put that in the game. And we did a few different city plans, as we call it. So a grid one, a grid 60-degree one, an organic one, a sort of more Mediterranean-inspired one, etc., etc. And then we put them for each culture. And the goal was, in the sense of the legacy that we are trying to talk about in Humankind, the goal was to say, you're gonna create a city in the ancient era, and then when you're going to be in the early modern era, you can see that you have the city plan of the first culture you built with. So try to emulate this sort of vibe that we have in a lot of cities, like especially European cities, where the historic center has a different layouts rather than the exterior neighborhoods. To talk about like representation on how we want and are eager to talk about this attention to details. The circular city plans you see was introduced in the Africa DLC, and it's inspired by the structure of Maasai villages. Okay. Really typical structure of these villages, vernacular architecture of Africa. It's super cool. Which
year are the Maasai again?
Maasai, it's era 4 in the African DLC.
Right.
And now it's a city plan that we use for most cultures that don't have like huge megalopolis or cities, but mostly small villages. Yeah. Like the Taino is one example in the Latin America DLC, for example. These were peoples in the Caribbean, so really small villages. And so basically so cool. You have this structure, and then you can put as many variations as you want.
Right, you just add the different bricks into those layouts.
And the more time you have, the more people you have, the more budget you have. You can put as many variations as you want, and if you have more time, you put more variations.
I think especially with what you were saying about the size of the teams that we're working with here at Amplitude, you know, y'all have done a fantastic job. You know, I think today I'm going to be playing almost all the way Zoom did. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm in honor.
You can truly do screenshot without the UI, and we love when we see like beautiful cityscapes in Reddit or stuff like that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I saw one on Reddit that was from like 17 hours ago or something like that. That it was like some mountain range. Yeah, looked epic. Looked like some like Lord of the Rings. Like, yeah, they're trying to bring down the mountain.
that's one thing. When I started to work on it, I was a huge Civilization and Endless Legend fan, and when I saw screenshots of amazing cityscape they done, I said, I want people to do that in Humankind.
Yeah, definitely.
And people did that, so it's pretty cool, and it's always good to see how they care about the visual of the city before trying to min-max their themes or stuff like that. When if you happen to have a player that say, I'm not gonna take this bonus, I'm just gonna put it because it's aesthetic. That's why we did our job right.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always choosing the cutest place to put my wonders.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know where this church would look good? Boom, on top of this hill.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I might need these yields later on, but it's fine. It'll look cute. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I think that you know, when the community can really like wrap their arms around the art and really like love just like the visuals of a game, I think that's huge because you know, I don't know, you're staring at it for a long time. These games take sometimes 6+ hours.
Yeah, sure.
And so I know that there's a lot of people that, especially when we were changing some things early on in the development of, early on after the launch of Humankind, with extending how long you could play the game without it ending, people were like, I haven't finished like designing my perfect city. Like all the tiles of the world aren't city yet. I need more time. So it's pretty cool, but. All right, cool. Let's talk more a little bit about some of the emblematic quarters and emblematic. Let's talk a little bit. Yeah, the city centers. Excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
About the new cultures that are coming in the expansion. So we have 6 new cultures. The emblematic quarters, like you were saying, are a bit more of a unique building, a little bit more designed to be set out apart from the crowd. When you're deciding how to kind of portray that emblematic quarter, what kind of is going through your head as, you know, how is it going to mesh into the other parts of the city? You know, are you planning like the route of where the roads are going to go? Because each of those city tiles has their specific, you know, layout. But how does that mesh in with every emblematic district? Is that something you have to like think about?
Not really, because emblematic districts are actually an exception. They all have their own city plan.
Okay.
Every one of them. So you can adapt it to whatever you want to show. The goal is always 2 things. Have it beautiful and have it readable, so you can, when you de-zoom, you should be able to see your emblematic at first glance. And then historic games are great because it helps us to teach things to people and just sort of pump up their curiosity.
Right.
And we say, okay, this emblematic is cool, and we are going to try to put this or these details that will amp up the curiosity of the players. So emblematic quarters are actually quite cool to do because you take your reference and you have almost total liberty on what you want to show. And we can, since they can be bigger than the other quarters, you can put in more details as you go.
Cool. Yeah, I think probably one of my favorite emblematic quarters is the I can't remember which culture has it, but it's the one that you put out in the desert, and it has like all those like river.
Oh, the Fogara from the Garamentus.
The Fogara, yeah. I don't know, it just looks really cool.
Yeah,
like it stands out when you're looking, and you're like, whoa, there's like a bunch of water coming out.
We try to do that to find quarters that are not exactly similar to other ones that you have in game. And sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it's pretty cool because you have the opportunity to put in something really different from the norm that we had in the rest of the game. The public housing for Singapore is quite cool for that.
So these are the 6 emblematic districts?
No, these are the city centers.
Oh, sorry, these are city centers.
These are the emblematics, and the Bulgarian one is actually pretty cool too. We put it on the platform, on the mountain. Yeah, on the plateau, so it stands out more.
I love the art. I love the dome.
These were done by Marine Maudui and Ophélie Brown, these assets, and they did a fantastic job to put them to life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's always pretty cool, and you learned a lot while working on that because I obviously didn't knew much about and medieval Bulgarian cultures. So when I saw
Me either.
every time when I work on Humankind, I have like a list of places to go on vacation that is always increasing.
Yeah, I'm always learning more about history, and I'm always learning about geography and
Yeah.
places that I want to go on vacation,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that Singaporean one. I'm assuming that's the Singapore one with the futuristic looking
Yeah.
buildings.
Yeah, these are the public housing for
I
Singapore.
think I need to go to Singapore. I think that's
You
what
can
I've-
you can go to this place. It's quite
what I've
similar
learned
in real
about-
life. So
in today's stream is that I need to go to Singapore. That's awesome. So the quarters, the different tiles and everything, they are evolving over time. Maybe could you talk a little bit about how they progress throughout the eras?
yeah, so the system is quite simple. Is a culture that you play is attached to an architectural style. So, for example, I don't know the
Egyptians.
Yeah, the Egyptians have a sort of Mesopotamian beige yellow buildings, and like for example, Spain have buildings like more modern with red roofs. So when you're gonna switch from Egyptia to Spain, your common buildings will change. But if you transcend, we'll try to have a lineage in terms of what is the natural progression of these cultures. If in Necrony, like the Maasai had really super contemporary cities, for example, and basically each time you change culture, your common buildings change, and that was sort of done to represent the evolution of the cities. Your people are adapting along hundreds of years to new styles of architectures, to the evolution of their cities. So it's basically like that, and that's one cool feature of the game, is that you can look at first glance at a city in Humankind and say, okay, I knew which culture this player have played, and we did like sort of guess game during the promotion of the game, but I saw people on Reddit do that today.
Yeah.
So to say, hey, do you guess what culture I've played? Okay, I see that you have Japanese city center and Venetian building and etc. And this sort of cohabitation is pretty cool because you have to adapt the scale of everything, the details of everything, the colors of everything. It's pretty hard to do, but it gives way to cool panoramas, we think. So yeah,
Definitely. Oh, that's awesome. There's so many cool aspects and so much thought and effort that goes into each of the I mean, just all of the aspects of what goes in a hexagon, you know?
yeah.
You think about all the different elements of the game, all the different quarters that you can make. So that's really cool to hear more kind of from your side what type of questions you ask yourself when you're making these, and kind of how that translates to how the player feels about what their cities look like, and kind of that legacy that it brings. You know, a lot of the you know, uniqueness of Humankind as a game comes from that cultural progression, the switching things up, you know. It's something that maybe we're criticized for, but I think, you know, in a lot of ways it is a really unique feature that allows people to, you know, customize their play style and also have interesting combinations, you know, having, I don't know, Big Ben next to the Statue of Liberty, or, you know, you can make these you know, impossible cities with impossible architectures happen in
Yeah, and
Humankind.
that these are things that come with the genre of 4X, of historical 4X. You're gonna always have something that's seemed out of place, and our goal is to make these gameplay rules that seem absurd in real life be coherent in terms of visuals.
I think they really mesh together, you know.
Yeah, we try to. That's why we try to keep a coherent style between assets, and
I've done my best to do fashion kind, you know,
Yeah.
and make everything look as pretty as it can. You got a little peninsula there. You're like, ooh, what if we had a harbor here? Or,
Yeah, sure.
I don't know, you know. It's a fun experience as a gamer, especially. All right, are there any questions? Let's see. So on Games Together currently, chat, if you're at home thinking about questions that you have, potentially historical questions for next week's stream, we still have the forum online on Games Together where you can add questions in that will be answered next week for the history stream. But we did pull some questions from the forum that you all left from previously. And I have a couple that I would love to ask you, if you're up for it.
Modified.
First one, let's go with the one from Chinag. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But they ask, how do you determine whether a new reworked feature is worth keeping or improved further or to be scrapped?
So I'm going to talk about visual, obviously, not gameplay elements. But basically, a lot of meetings with the historians, the art director, so Loris, and Benoit, the game director, to say, we have that in the game, and can we improve it upon? Can we improve upon it? And our goal is always to say, yes, this architectural style is not that well known. Maybe it's the opportunity to push it further and to add more diversity to it. It was especially true in the African DLC because it was an area that was a bit misrepresented in the base game, and we tried to bring as much as a new architectural style as we could to be true to these cultures, and was the same for the expansion. So basically, sometimes cultures that are really in the same area can have the same building styles. For example, you see that the Venetians and the Spanish are using the same architectural style with a sort of mix in terms of inspiration between Venice, Spanish cities, Portuguese cities, etc. But sometimes it don't work with the existing assets, so we're going to say, okay, we have to absolutely put the priority on doing new buildings for these cultures. Like when we did the Swahili, for example, we had nothing that matched with the Swahili cities. So it was obligatory to put a new architectural style, but it was also a great opportunity to say, hey, Swahili cities look pretty great and almost nobody knows about them. So we are gonna try to show people what it looked like and put as much detail as we can. So if we have someone who really knows Swahili cities really well, he can say, hey, if they did this building, is cool. And so it's pretty much like it. Sort of, it's really organic as a process. We always try to improve upon what was already been made. So yeah, it's a lot of talks between the historians and the art team.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of thought that goes into each, cultures, buildings, and things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of research, so that's awesome.
And we all have our favorites, and we all say, okay, this one, I really want to do it. Same for the wonders, for example. We have the suggestions that were made by the community. For example, we have someone that made a huge Google Doc on natural wonders with like 80 natural wonders you want to see in the game. Mm-hmm. So we have this Google Doc somewhere and we check it regularly to say, okay, this one is cool, this one is cool, this one is cool. Sometimes some natural wonders don't make the cut because they're either too large, too small, they are already in other games. Mm-hmm. They are not that spectacular from an aerial point of view.
Right.
Because some caves, for example, are superb natural wonders, but you're in a forest, you see the ground from above, so
yeah,
it's not going to work.
Yeah, no, it's the kind of micro versus macro beauty. It's like some things you just can't show from a top-down perspective.
Yeah, and you see, do you have something too similar? For example, we already have a lot of lakes as natural wonders.
There's a lot of salty places.
Yeah, a lot of salty places, a lot of lakes. So we're going to try to put something a bit different. But it depends. Like for example, Lake Layton was a lake, but it was a red lake with like super emblematic visuals. So we say, okay, we have to put it in there. And we have all our favorites. I'm super happy to have put in like Lenchoish Malaniensis in the South American DLC because I found this place amazing, and I don't know why so many people don't know about it. So I was like, okay, that's my opportunity to put it in a game that will speak to a lot of people, and I want it in there, and I'll be like really dedicated to put it in it.
So how much influence do you have in what goes into the game and what doesn't? You know, are these decisions made on kind of like a more producer, director level, or is this something that the artists, like, if they're really passionate about one specific, wonder, is that something that you can be like, hey, I really want this to be in the game? Can I draw it? Can I do it?
It's a balance between community requests, what the team wants, and what the game direction wants. And some wonders are unavailable. Like for example, you can do a 4X game without putting in the Everest, for example. But some we try to always release a new culture pack or a new content with something that is a bit unusual. So if we are going to do a new Natural Wonder pack, it's best if the players don't know by heart every Natural Wonder we're going to put in. To, like, as I said before, to, like, the curiosity we have, to give it to the players so they have the same curiosity as us, and they spend as many hours as us on websites trying to look at the natural wonder of the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much like it. It's really, it's not. We don't have much of a fight when we choose features. It's always pretty cool and pretty easy to choose.
Awesome. We have a couple more questions, but I do want to be careful of our time here since we do have other guests that we do need to get to. I guess what I want to do maybe is I want to ask you, is there anything that you would like to say, any topics that maybe we've missed, things that you would like to say to the community, just kind of from your experience, I know that I get a lot of screen time here on the streams and everything, so I get to talk to the community and whatever. But is there anything that maybe you would like to say for the artists, for anything like that?
So first of all, thanks to the community for the reception of the game, because we got a huge amount of great and really heartwarming comments on the art direction and on the art of Humankind. And since we put a lot of time in it and a lot of dedication to it, it's really super cool to see that it matters for a lot of people. For me personally, I learned a lot of things while playing historical games, so I wanted to work on these games to learn new things and make people learn things. So when I had the opportunity to work on an African DLC, to put in the Maasai, the Bantu, new cultures that are not that well known, it was super cool. And I think it's important for people to learn new things and to have new faces in these historical genres that are sometimes a bit on the same time period. So we tried to do that as best as we could. And when I see a comment about, like, for example, a Singaporean or a Bulgarian player who say, "Oh, I know this place is like 20 kilometers away from my city, and I'm super glad they made it in the game," it's always super heartwarming because that's the intention behind it, to connect people, to make people learn new things, and to always open your eyesights on new stuff in the world, because there is so much diversity to see.
Yeah, I think it's a very special. What do we got? We got a question here. By the way, I live about 400 kilometers away from the Lensoir Maranensis. So if anyone in your Amplitude crew
I'll be glad
wants to visit, just come to Brazil.
I'll be glad to.
That's hilarious. All right, we're taking you up on that offer, okay? I'll be there.
Yeah,
I haven't been
sure.
to Brazil yet, so I need to go. That's hilarious. But yeah, no, I think, I mean, it's almost like some sort of like vindication, right? When you're seeing something that's very quintessentially your culture shown in a game, you know, you have a connection to it, and I think that a lot of people are feeling that. There were tons of comments, like you were saying, about the Bulgarian culture being added into a 4X game, or the Singaporean, or any of the other ones, the Han especially. People were really excited. So you know, it's just a visualization. You know, being able to see that physically in the game is super cool. So
Yeah.
I know the community appreciates it, and they're gonna be. I think the hype's gonna go through the roof once they get their hands on the DLC itself. So, thank you very much for joining us. We're gonna have a couple more guests here in just a second. We're just gonna have a short transition period as we get mics changed around and get them over here on the guest couch. But Victor, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for joining us.
It was super cool.
Heck yeah. It's good having you. I'm sure we could sit here and talk more about all of the nitty-gritty about the art forever, but it was good getting to chat while we could.
Yeah. Thanks to the viewers, and hope you had a great time, and you will be having a great time after.
Yeah, heck yeah. November 9th, for anybody that doesn't know the date. November 9th, it's coming. But anyways, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much for hanging out here, listening to the beautiful music, looking at the beautiful Humankind waiting screen. That was one of the most fun screens to look at, if you ask me. But anyways, we're back here. My name is Jordan, in case you didn't see at the beginning, and I am your host today, as we are going to be interviewing a couple more of our artist designers. I guess I don't know what to call you. Artists? We're interviewing some of our artists. Let's keep it simple. But anyways, I am joined by Kanta and Flor. And thank you very much for being here and joining us here on the stream.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, of course. It's always fun having new faces on the stream. And I always love putting the designers up, you know, close and personal with the community because, you know, I think the more, you know, friendly faces that you get to know, the people that are like working day in and day out on the games that you love, that you're passionate about, it really builds that connection because, you know, I think sometimes you may forget that there are real people that are coming every day to work and putting in blood, sweat, and tears into making, you know, the best art possible. Literally, yours is art. But, you know, even the people that are doing other jobs, you know, they think of it as an art form, you know. So, but let's talk about the actual art that you both are involved with. As you all can see, Kanta works with the illustrations and Flor works with character designs. And so let's start off maybe a little bit with you, Flor. We'll kind of have a little bit of a discussion here, which, by the way, if anybody does have any questions, feel free to at us with your questions for either of these two lovely people. You can ask me questions too, but I don't know as much, so. But anyways, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Why do you do what you do? And where do you come from? I don't know. What's your favorite color?
I don't know.
You don't have a favorite color?
Not really.
Not really, dang. That's rough. Mine's purple. It used to be blue, but then as a kid I realized everybody's favorite color is blue. And I was like, well, I can't have that. I'm too hipster to be everybody. So I was like purple, because no guys ever, when I was a kid, were saying that their favorite color was purple. You just didn't do that. It was like blue, green, red. Like those were your options as a boy. Thinking about that, that's kind of messed up. I'm so glad the world is changing, you know? It's fantastic. All right. So yeah, so you're from France, right?
Yes, I'm
Cool.
from near to Paris, in fact.
A local.
Yes, a bit. I'm working in Amplitudes from a year and a half now,
Okay.
and I worked on avatars in Humankind and several heads for influencers or historical characters.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. So have you been doing art your whole life? You know, when you were 3 years old, your mom handed you a paint set and she's like, Flor, you shall soon someday be a master artist.
I don't think they ever said that when I was
No?
3 years old, but
Dang. I mean, maybe you wouldn't have become an artist if they had done that, though. It would have been that, like, my parents always tried to get me to do that art thing.
But I always loved art. I played violin for 10 years, and I had several lessons before working
Yeah.
in art and drawing schools and stuff.
So you did a drawing school as well, kind of like Victor
Yes.
said. Okay. Is that kind of an industry standard at this point, to go to an art school specifically, or?
Now a bit, because
Okay.
it's expanded a lot recently.
So if anybody wants to get a job at Amplitude Studios, that's not a requirement necessarily.
No, in
But it could
art, if you're
help.
good and you have a good portfolio, you don't necessarily need to have...
Doesn't matter if you're good.
Yes.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. I think that maybe applies to all jobs. If you can just like show people that you can do whatever it is that you want to do
It's
really
easier
well.
to show art things that maybe other jobs, but
That is a really good point, actually. Having a portfolio is a very visual way of showing what you've done, and so that's super cool. So before you worked at Amplitude Studios, did you work on any other projects?
I worked for about a year as a freelance 3D artist.
Okay.
And before that, I was at school. As a freelance artist, I always preferred characters, but had to do several missions in environment and stuff. But I'm glad that I can now do always characters and stuff I like.
Okay, cool. So as chat you can see on screen right now, we have some of the concept art of the various styles of, I guess, what is the English word? Clothes. I was like, vêtements. I don't know why that was the word that I was thinking in French, but yeah, you have the different clothing styles for the various cultures. Obviously, you have the Scottish here. And so you work with actually designing, when you're playing Humankind and you choose a new culture and your avatar gets a fancy new outfit, those are the type of things that you're working on then?
I don't really decide of the designs. I work closely with concept artists, so I can tell what is possible to make in 3D or not, and we decide to we compromise.
Okay. And so what tools are you using then in the 3D art to actually make these in the game?
A lot of softwares.
Okay.
First, for some outfits, I need to start with simulations, physics for complicated outfits.
Mm-hmm.
Like to help me, I have a base for folds and stuff. Like ancient outfits have really complicated outfits that we don't wear anymore. Maybe you can show the process images for the Swiss female. That was the more complicated one I made. So I start with simulations with a software that is working like a sewing tool. I'm not a fashion designer, so I have to interpret.
No, this looks like what my mom would
people.
use for like sewing design. Like she would always be going to the sewing store and getting these like designs and stuff for like dresses. She had like stacks and stacks of fabric, but I don't remember how many of the times she actually like made stuff out of the fabric. But it was kind of like a hobby, you know, collecting designs and stuff. But yeah, it looks interesting. Like there's the different pieces of the outfit. And so do you work on that in a 2D space first to like figure out what that looks like and then slap it on to the 3D as well?
Yes, to make simulation I have to quite understand how it could be made in real life, but I really don't understand. I will never make such thing in real life.
Yeah.
It's too hard for me.
Seems pretty complicated,
but
looks
as
cool.
soon as it looks a bit like what it could be and it works, it's fine.
Yeah. No, those ruffly sleeves are kind of intense.
Yeah, sleeves were horrible to make for me, but
I love it. So that would you say maybe that's one of the hardest things that you've had to design?
yes, I think that's a more difficult one I made on Humankind. Also, I just worked on Humankind for a year, a bit more maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first costume I made was the Han China, female one. And that was pretty easier at this stage of the production. But now I look at it and I just see that it wasn't good enough.
Right. As an artist, you know, as your skills progress, because obviously, you know, you work hard, you study, you go to school, you improve your skills and everything, and then you get to, you know, a job, you're working the job. You know, how is that mentally when you look back at, you know, what you did a year ago? Is that something that's like, you know, you want to go back and like change it or like do it differently?
No, it's really, I think it's great to see how we can improve our skills and to see the difference between our old self and now.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
No, I think it's great. I won't change anything. I don't think to.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think especially as individuals, you know, it's always good to move on, you know, move forward.
Yes.
And you know, obviously this art that we're looking at here looks great. It looks fantastic. So
Also,
that's-
I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah, no, continue.
I didn't speak about concept art. It's not my part, but I try to explain a bit.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the process then of how you get to the 3D image.
For the concept artist, it's hard to. It's really an exchange between historians and concept artists to make a design that it's impactful, memorable, and optimized, doable in 3D.
Yeah, because obviously not every you know, Swiss person wore the same outfit. I think we can safely assume that everybody wasn't wearing uniforms.
Yes.
So you know, it's what you're saying is kind of it's an exchange between you, the historians, and the concept artists. A little triangle of discussion, I guess you could say, where you're deciding what's going to be feasible,
Yes.
what's going to be memorable, and what's accurate to the history.
Yes.
That's super cool. I love the different color variations. What are the different
I just
colorations?
made that to show that we make masks to color player for color players.
Right.
So each outfit have a different mask, and we have to think about it at the concept stage.
So, like, I think you can, in the settings when you're choosing what your avatar looks like, you can choose like an accent color or something like that.
Sorry.
I think you can choose like an accent color. I think I chose mine as like purple or something. I think we were talking about favorite colors and it made me think of this.
Yes.
Actually, that's an interesting question that's not planned, but how do you mesh what their like favorite color is going to be with like? How do you choose what part of the outfit's going to be the accent? I guess is my
Sometimes it's
question.
not easy. Like in this one, the Sumerian, there's not a lot of colors, so it's just a red line on the belt.
Mm-hmm.
And where there are big dresses with large, large shapes of one color, it's easy to choose what part will change of color. It's the whole red part in the Sumerian one.
Oh, okay.
Also,
Very cool.
the concepts are made originally with accurate color about historical references, and after that we choose which part will change. So maybe we can't catch up anymore the original color because it doesn't exist in the game.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. That's really cool. I like that. So, you were talking about, you know, how sometimes when you're having these conversations about what outfit you can possibly do, are there certain types of outfits that are just not possible to make? Like, are there limits that just can't be done?
Yes and no. We have to change some details sometimes so the animation part doesn't struggle more.
Right, when they're doing the, I'm so upset that you
Yes.
attacked my kingdom, or whatever, you know, the...
The outfit needs to be accurate and works with every animations already made in the game. So each time we make an outfit, we need to test it with all the animation, and we need to think about it early. So if we have a problem too late in the process, it's really hard to change.
Because
and
you've
fix
already
it.
sunk hours and hours
Yes.
of work into the design, right?
Like, I don't know, sleeves being too large and...
Start clipping into the head when they lift their arms or whatever.
These kind of things is hard to animate.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would think that any like complex, you know, like you were talking about physics before, it just made me think of togas. Interestingly enough, you know, you just have a lot of draping fabric, and I guess we don't really have a ton of, you know, animated like walking and
Yes.
jumping and things like that to worry about. But still, there is a fair amount of movement
Yes.
involved with the avatars. They do feel very lifelike, especially when you're in the screen where they're talking to each other and they're like, a grand proposal, thank you. There's definitely a bit of movement there happening.
Actually, I think with more time passed with being greedy with the designs and wanted to do beautiful stuff, and constraints came up and we need to lower a bit our...
Simplify, maybe.
Yes.
Make things a bit more efficient. I mean, that makes sense. It's Victor was saying, a small team. It's honestly amazing the amount of work that you're able to get done. I don't think. Sometimes, chat, when you're like, just make a free culture to give out, because we gave out the Mississippian culture for the community challenge, and people were like, that was amazing, do it again.
It's long to do.
The amount of work that goes into it, at every step of the way, it's just mind-blowing to me as somebody who's not in the trenches with you every day.
But
I'm up here crafting witty tweets, but you all are down there, crafting outfits and stuff, and that's crazy.
Actually, I liked the Mississippian one because I worked on the male one, and I never worked on this kind of outfits with feathers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked it, and I liked the fact that it was free, so everyone could see it,
Yeah,
even
definitely.
without losing money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's it's cool. I mean, it's kind of an interesting concept, working on something that's going to be given away for free, but you're getting paid for it.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's good.
Also, I didn't talk about the other artists.
Yeah, feel free.
These works shown there are not all by me, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The concept ones are by Loris, Jeanne, and Thibaut. And for the 3D parts, I worked a lot with Régis, Cédric, and Johan.
And just as a quick reminder, if you do want to look at any of the art stations for any of these people, they are available on the link that we had in the chat. So, if anybody wants to check those out, definitely check out. It's essentially a link tree, if you will, which has a bunch of different art station, essentially portfolios of our artists. Which, I mean, what type of things are they gonna see if they go on there? They're gonna see pieces that person has worked on specifically.
Yes, but it's portfolios, so we only put on it what we've worked on.
Mm-hmm.
But as it's portfolios, many people here have worked on several other projects, so it could be cool to see what people have worked on before or on their personal projects too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that as an artist, being just getting recognition for your work is really nice because of, again, how much time really goes into it. So did you have a favorite culture from the expansion to work on?
Yes, actually that was the Swiss female because I really struggled working on it, but as it was challenging, I was proud to, I think, succeed.
It looks beautiful. I totally get you there where, if something's very difficult and very challenging, there's a certain amount of satisfaction in having struggled for a long time and had it work out. That's awesome. Yeah, there it is again. The ribbon arms. It's crazy, all the separate pieces there.
Maybe there's a better way to do it, but I managed to do it in a way that works for me.
I mean, I can't imagine there being a much easier way with having, because you want to have the separation there in between the two different layers of the fabric. Obviously, you could use some sort of shading to make it a single piece or whatever, and it might look fine. But knowing that there's actually that depth to the art, actually, I think it adds a certain level of complexity. That's nice. So, But yeah, I see Dark Arrow mentioning about drops. That's a really good point. If anybody is interested in getting any of the influencer avatars, which you said you had worked on a couple of those?
Some, yes.
Okay. So there are content creators that we've worked with as partners with our studio and with Humankind that have custom avatars that are in the game. Those custom avatars can be earned, I guess, through Twitch. Earned is the right word, I think. Through Twitch drops program, I guess. So you need to be on Twitch, which we're streaming live on Twitch and YouTube. So if you're on YouTube and you don't have the drops yet for the avatars, feel free to go over to Twitch. You need to have your Twitch drops set up, and then you also just need to activate that through Games Together. So it's there's a couple of steps, but once you get them, then you can play against these avatars in the game. They have their own voice lines, they have their own personalities. It's a really cool feature and a very unique thing that we've done with Humankind. That took a lot of time.
Yes.
As you can see here, there's also the Horatio avatar, which was another cool one if you're a fan of the Endless series, or any of the Endless Universe games, Endless Legend, Endless Space. You'll probably recognize Horatio, who is the most beautiful of avatars, and you can play against Horatio. I think you unlock the Horatio avatar actually by playing the Endless mod. You have to complete one game, I think. Do you have to win, or do you have to complete it? I'm not sure. If anybody's earned the avatar, you might be able to tell us which one it is. You just have to complete it, okay? Just playing in a game with Horatio is winning, so... Oh, goodness. Perfect. I like it. Alright, let's see. What else do we have to talk about here? There's so many things to talk about in so little time. We're getting closer to the end, so I just want to make sure we don't miss anything really important. Are we going to get glasses that you can put on your avatar anytime soon? One of our community members asked, Mr. Thighs wants to know when we're getting glasses.
Actually, I can't tell. Yes, it's easy to make in 3D for artists, but the feature to add glasses to your avatar isn't developed, and I think not planned for now. Maybe one day, but it takes time to developers that are really busy. So
yeah, no, I mean we've talked a little bit about the glasses issue in the past. So I think the community understands, how difficult it is to make the glasses fit on every single head and make it all look good. But yeah, we did have some special hats that you can see these hats on screen right now. So those are some new things that are being added to the game. But yeah, cool. That was just kind of a joke.
Sorry.
A joke. I mean, it's not a joke question. Obviously, like people really want to know if we're gonna have glasses, but we've answered it in the past, and the answer is still the same: is that it'd be really difficult to do, and we're trying to work on a lot of other things right now. So let's talk a little bit about illustration content.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself first of all.
Yeah.
Also French.
Yeah, also
Kay.
French, and almost like Florian, I think it's a common occurrence among artists to like art for a pretty long time. Since all my life I loved art, and when I was a child.
So you got a paintbrush when you were a kid, then?
Yeah. I had a paintbrush, and
some kids get a soccer ball or toy truck.
It was an idea to do art for living, and to live for art basically for a very long time. I remember when I was a child, I wanted to do whatever, to draw all the time. Like I want to do comic books or video games or whatever. Just something to draw, and video games were on the table at one point. I read manuals from games like Warcraft 2, and I looked at the drawings, and I was, that's so cool. I need to do that in my life, and time passed, and I abandoned the project a bit in high school and in university. I did studies in history and not art. I wanted to go to an art school, but I have been rejected. So I was okay. I will do something else with my life. And in the middle of my history studies, yeah, I felt I was missing something. So I did get back to art by myself. There were a lot of forums at the time. Drawing and painting forums where you could get feedbacks on your drawings and learn that way.
So where are the artist people's forums? Like Reddit? Are we talking Reddit or are we talking like...
No. At the time I went a lot on conceptart.org.
That sounds like the fakest website ever.
Yeah, but it exists. And I think
art.org.
And there is a faker one with a French title. I think it's not active anymore, but it was called the Café Salé. You could roughly
salty coffee?
Yeah, the salty coffee. And it was a big platform of art exchange in the French language at the time. And I learned that way. I made people, and you could share resources, learning materials.
That sounds amazing as a resource, actually, because so much about, improving your craft, improving, whatever it is you're passionate about, comes from sharing that with other people and being really real about, like, hey, I'm working on this skill. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, obviously. Yeah. But having the I guess the gall to like be like, tell me what you think. You know? That's hard. I mean, even making art for a game, it's difficult because people are gonna see this. People are gonna look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is either cool or not cool. And and I think that giving that to the people has got to be a little.
A bit intimidating.
Intimidating, for sure.
But it was sort of a mandatory path. I mean, you can grow if you don't have any external eye on your work. You just can't know what is wrong with it, and you can learn that with time, how to have an objective eye on what you do, but in the beginning it's basically impossible, and these platforms were here to fill that need, because when you're alone drawing in your room, in your bedroom, you don't have feedbacks, and you can go on wrong ways and never grow in your skill, and it was. It's this nice thing with the internet. It's that the resources are there, and if you want to learn something, you potentially can get some knowledge going on the internet, and even some interactions from people who are way more skilled than you, and that can give you feedback, advices, and give you more resources to learn that you don't know about. And that was basically my path. And after that, I had to do an internship with university, and they were kind enough to sponsor an internship in a video game company. So I could do that with my university, and after that I was getting started in the industry, and I ended up at Amplitude like 4 years ago. Like Victor, I arrived later than him in November 2018, and
So it's been a bit.
Yeah, 4 years, almost, and voila.
So you worked on Humankind. Did you work on any other?
No. I worked only on Humankind. it's the only project I worked on since I
That's
arrived.
pretty crazy.
Yeah. But
I mean, because Humankind released a year ago, essentially a little bit, more than a year ago. But to think that 3 years before it was released, Kanta was over here working on it.
Yeah, and I arrived. It was already on the way for a long time, so I kind of hopped on in the production process that was really greatly advanced at the time. So yeah, I think Humankind development took quite some time.
Yeah, definitely.
I arrived in the middle of it.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. So it's not every day that you get to talk to an illustrator. Tell me a little bit about what a normal day is for you. You wake up in the morning, you get to work. What's the first thing you do? You're starting to draw.
Yeah. Basically, that's my work. So I start to draw in the morning, and I finish it in the evening. And
so you just draw all day?
Yeah.
So these are some of the culture cards?
Yeah, I draw, but there's different parts of the process that, especially in a professional environment, you need to be able to deliver something at the end of the process, and it has to be good enough to go into the game. So to do that, you will split up the element of the image, like composition, the drawing, the colors, in different parts that you will be working on separately. And I think the Swiss culture card is a good example.
That's for the lighting.
Yeah,
like the light and shadowy parts.
Yeah, it's the early stages of the painting. I receive a brief. We want to represent Swiss civilization in our game. They are militarist or something like that. The game director, my art director, and the historian Etienne, that you will see next week, have an idea for the civilization in the game, and an aspect of it I have to put an emphasis on. And in the case of the Swiss, we wanted to talk about the fact that in the Renaissance time there were some of the most not fearful but fearsome warriors of Europe, and there were mercenaries that were working and fighting for diverse armies of Europe, and we wanted to put an emphasis on that, and that there are mountains in Swiss, so we needed to put a mountain, and specifically the Matterhorn, I think.
The Matterhorn?
Yeah, Matterhorn.
I've been to Disneyland, I know about the Matterhorn.
Yeah.
So they didn't get to the chocolate making until later. They started off as warriors.
The beginning was not as delightful as chocolate in the beginning. And so I have a brief, and I do some propositions of some ideas of composition in black and whites, because that way.
So all those that we saw. Sorry, to interrupt you, but we saw like 5 different stages of an image or whatever. You make each of those 5 stages of images, or is there a concept art that you receive and then you take that and make those?
I receive references.
Okay,
but
so there's no concept art in between the
there are no concept. I can use the concept that have been done for the game, like what our soldiers, our Swiss soldier in the game looks like. So I don't diverge too much from its in-game aspect, but no, I don't have much concept art to do with. Just historical references and some personal references, some mood boards I will gather, and after that I will propose some sketches idea where I can put basic composition of the image without thinking of details or colors. And once this step is validated, I will go through the colorization of the drawing. I will propose some a color rough, in fact. And once everything is okay, like composition is good, colors are good, I will do more precise drawing, what you can call the line work, with a really tight drawing, so you don't have to think about you don't have to think about drawing when you're painting, because it's the best way to lose yourself in the process.
So are these methods that you're talking about, are they like standard? Like, is this like
it's pretty standard.
I mean, forgive my ignorance. I don't know if chat's sitting here being like, "Wow, Jordan doesn't know anything about art," but like, I mean, I've tried to draw things. Okay, like I've tried my hand at, like, you know, sketching some stuff out. But honestly, like, the idea of first designing, you know, the like lighting first, and then designing like the lines, and then like coloring everything, like that seems like a lot of extra steps when you could just start drawing it, you know?
Yeah, but I like to see drawing as a problem-solving game. And
for some odd reason, I thought you were going to say baking a cake. I was like, it's like baking a cake. You start off with the flour. And
you could use that as a metaphor too. And you have a lot of problems to solve, like how can I identify what is in the image, what colors
what's the focal point?
I
feel like that's always my
what's
issue.
the focal point, and what thing looks like, in fact, like how the arm that I will represent in the painting will look like. And it's a lot of problems that are not that hard to solve individually, but if you do everything in the same time, like composition, color, drawing, it's become really hard. And you can do that as an exercise, and when you don't have the pressure to have to deliver something in the end of the process. But if you have to have a working picture at the end, it's better to split up the process and solve each problem separately. And it's a pretty standard methodology of doing illustrations. I did not invent this process, but yeah, it's really standard, and that way you can go through most of your problems easily.
There's kind of a systematic approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Composing this.
Yeah.
I wonder if, like, the artists of old, you know, when you go to the Louvre or whatever, and you're looking at different pieces of art that somebody's painted or whatever, I wonder if they, like, sketched it out first and, like, was like, this is gonna be like the lighting and this is that.
More often than not, the process of sketching and doing roughs and doing a final in the end is it has been there for as long as we can remember. It's just, but you can always do a painting on the go and don't split up the process. It's a possibility, but yeah, I think when you want sort of a reliable way of doing things,
something that can be reproduced.
Yeah, the system is important. Especially if you're paid for that, you don't have much room for failure, because if you can't consistently draw things as they're needed, you won't be really useful in the production, and you have to be a bit methodic to do things, to deliver something. Yeah, methodical. Sorry, and.
I didn't remember the word until you said it, and I had to think about it. I was like, yeah. Methodical sounds like some, like, I don't know, like serial killer or something. Like, you're like, all right, step by step, how do we make this painting?
Good vibes.
yeah, exactly. No, I think methodical just has like a connotation to it or something. But okay, I was thinking of a couple of different questions when you were talking. One of them is do you ever get to a point in a illustration where you realize it's all wrong, it's all bad,
Yeah.
and I need to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
How does
it happens?
that happens?
That happens.
And you just have to go tell your boss, you're like, hey, it's not going to
No,
work.
that happens, but generally, thanks to the process, to a systematic approach of it, sometimes it will be harder and you will be disappointed by the result. But generally speaking, I can draw something that is okay-ish, and so you don't have to go back and redo everything. But yeah, some images are harder to do than others. Some will flow like a breeze, and you will have the picture in your head, and it will be easy after that. And some pictures will fight you until the very end, and you will be. It will be painful, like you said. Sometimes the struggle is real when you're doing some artwork, and yeah, it depends. But it's hard to anticipate that a picture will be hard to do or easy. Sometimes you will be inspired and have a lot of ideas, but in the end you will be struggling all the way until the end. It's not hard science. It's an artistic process.
Yeah, I think art in general is just different than other, forms of work, because it's not a linear progress a lot of times. Sometimes it's a loop-de-loop, you're like, all right, I really think I know what we're doing, we're doing it, it's looking good, ooh, actually, no, this isn't going to work, we got to go back. And, I have to imagine that in some points in the process, how much work you've put into it almost limits your ability to rethink things, because you're like, oh, but I already have 4 of the 5 steps done.
That's why you have colleagues and artistic director and other persons that can have a fresh eye on your work, and sometimes you will need it because you're so deep in your picture, you can see anything right, and
I think I'm not cut out for making beautiful art like this. Like, every single culture card is a banger. Every single, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, you look at them and you're like, this is an epic scene. Like, there's no part of me that is looking at this being like, I guess it's all right. It's just like, yes, I don't know. But I feel like maybe I could do, caricatures. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of Ryan Trahan. He's this YouTuber. He did this penny series where he started off by a penny, went across the United States, tried to earn money by starting off with a penny, hey, I'll trade you this penny for a pen. Oh, I'll trade you this pen for $1, that type of thing. But he does caricatures, and he donations only type of thing. But he made a lot of money doing caricatures, and that's kind of like a free form. You have a minute to do somebody's face, and I think I like the aspect of capturing the feeling, because so many of these images, they have such a vibe. You think, what's going on there? Or with the event art. Is the event art also illustrations?
Not all the illustrations are by me.
Of course.
These one are by me. I did some event illustration, a lot of them, in fact.
Because we're doing the event series on our Instagram account, which, by the way, if you're not following us on Instagram, Humankind Game, go find us. But people see the image of the event. They don't know what it's called yet because it hasn't been released. And they have to guess. We're kind of doing a wrong answers only situation where it's you're guessing silly things about what could be in it. But I really do think these images, tell a story, and that's kind of
I'm glad they tell a story, because it's all their purpose. In the end, an illustration have to tell a story, and if the objective is accomplished, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing 1 minute caricatures of people at lunch. I'll be like, oh, he's got the baguette, and okay. And he's like, oh, he looks like he's really enjoying it. That'd be pretty funny. I'd like that. So I'm sure that there are people sitting at home potentially thinking to themselves, what I really like? Art. What's something that the people at home could be doing today if, let's say, they want a career in illustration or in art, video games in general, because you obviously went through a bit of a process to get where you are now. You have a lot of experience, obviously, now, but it wasn't easy.
No, I'd say you have to start as soon as possible because the process is long, and if you really want to do it, you have to work on it the fastest possible.
As fast as possible,
because it's a really long process, and the more you postpone it, the more it will be long, and the more it will be painful and frustrating. Yeah. So sorry.
I was just going to say the advice you gave earlier about getting other people to look at your art is huge as well, because
I think don't be alone, and put the work in it, and with work and a bit of luck, to be honest, you can do it, I think.
Just cut the feed
maybe
there.
It's
just end it there. That was perfect. I don't think we need to say anything else. No, that was very inspiring. We should record that and put it on a YouTube short or something.
Nice.
That was very inspiring. I know that we're here to talk about the expansion in a video game, but I mean, we're all real people too, and we're all facing challenges in life. And as much as you're here as an artist, I'm here as the streamer, host, and everything. I think it's important to remember in our community that we're here for you. We really want to create the best things that we can, but life's hard, and I think that being able to take a step back and be like, hey, what do I want in life? What am I working towards? Is really a cool thing to be able to kind of take a step back and think about. So. Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for people, new people to work here at Amplitude Studios. We have a ton of jobs opening. I saw somebody was asking about jobs earlier. We linked to our careers page. But yeah, the gaming industry needs lots of people, artists. People for marketing, people for websites.
It's a big teamwork. As Victor said.
It's a huge teamwork, and although we were only able to have 3 of you here today, huge shout out and thank you to all the artists that have worked on Humankind, making it, might I say, the prettiest 4X game out there. But yeah, thank you all very much for coming today. Yeah. It's been a pleasure having you. Is there anything either of you want to say before we wrap it up here?
No, I think I'm good. I don't know about you, but...
Cool. No, I like it. Like I said, we could have just cut it off right there at the end of your inspirational message. Oh goodness. Etienne, is there any messages in the chat that we've missed? There's got to be a couple. Let's see if we can answer a couple messages before we go here. 66 Feet asks, how did you come up with the spy art? Why is she wearing a big hat?
It's funny because I didn't do the spy hat.
Okay, that's one of the ones that you didn't do.
It's Loris that did it.
Loris.
Our art director.
Okay. I'm assuming because of some historical reference photo, right?
Yeah.
Historically speaking...
Yeah, everything is historically backed because we have... Benoit, our game director, and Etienne, who is an historian.
Benoit started off as a historian as well, so he has a big background.
And they put a lot of effort in making everything we draw, our model, believable and historically accurate. Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe the question, because I've never seen spies wearing hats, big hats, so I think maybe what we're running into is in other portrayals of spies in other forms of media, maybe people have chosen not to portray it how we've chosen to portray it, and whether that's based off of us choosing an actual historical reference or other people choosing something that's easily recognizable as, oh, that's the spy.
We could have go for the sort of cliché spy with a hood and the a strange looking aspect. But yeah, I think we went for a more original and historically accurate costume, and I think that's one of the strengths of Humankind. In the art of Humankind in general,
unapologetically original. I like it.
I hope so.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, some people, you know, almost try and shame it by saying, like, oh, like, it's so woke or whatever. But, like, in a lot of ways, you know, being able to portray things that have not been portrayed before, being able to shine a light on maybe a spy costume or whatever that you've never seen before is a kind of a cool thing, and I really do feel like I learn something new every time that I play Humankind, because I'm just like, oh yeah, like, I guess that is a thing. So that's super cool. Good question. Any other questions we got?
You just say.
There's more of the same. Was there any interesting bit of info that you only learned while doing research for the expansion?
Oh yeah. It was for an event. We have this event that is called Child Savior, and it's based on an historical event that is called the Child Crusade in the year 1212, where that were not actually child that went on crusade, but it's a really original event where poor people at the same time in Germany and France decided to go on crusade on their own.
Crusades to where?
To Jerusalem, and spontaneously people gathered and wanted to go on crusade, and it did not ended up well. But basically, they never went in the Middle East because they are poor and they have no means of doing it. But yeah, it's a really original event that I didn't know about before working on this particular event, and it was an interesting bit. But we learned a lot of things working on Humankind.
There's so much interesting bits of history that you just would never even know until there's some event in Humankind, and you're like, oh hey, learn a new thing. That's awesome. Heck yeah! Thank you all very much. Yeah. Again, if you have questions for the historical aspect, feel free to drop them over on Games Together. It's in the general forum for Humankind. Just go to the general one. It's the top pinned message. We'd love to hear more questions for Etienne for next week, who will be our next guest. But yeah, Kanta, Flor, Victor, thank you all very much for hanging out with us, having a fantastic stream. We're going to end the stream here. But after I get a couple of things set back up and hop back on the computer, I'll be back for some more Humankind gameplay. So just hang out for another 15 minutes. You'll see us go live again, and we'll be back for that. But thank you all very much. We love you all. You're the best community ever.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we will see you very shortly. Peace out.